Chuka Ihonor is an architect and is also the chairman of the Board of Trustees of Open House Lagos. So Chuka, I think I introduced you, but you can just share a couple of lines of some of what you're also doing in terms of shaping the spaces that we live in. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, as an architect, obviously, I somehow help to shape the city, rather directly, actually. But I think a lot of architects fail to want to make an impact on the city and fail to want to make that can lead to a better city. A single building never really can change a city, but it can open up conversations about that. And I think to a large extent, that's what I feel that I want to do with architecture. I just want to continue to do a little bit and then hope that people see it. I also like to bring architects together, designers together, hence the 9H Design Talk series and some other things that I've done that are basically to try to bring us all together to have these conversations and discussions. And Open House Lagos, of course, which is yet another area that we can use to develop this idea of coming together to get the city on a better footing. I mean, I always notice that government never really does enough on its own. Not that I'm saying they should do everything, but they actually don't even do their bit, to be honest, in the city being, making the environment a lot better. So I think it's up to us to do it. And it's also up to us to criticize government, which I think doesn't happen enough. I think people are scared of government, which is a pity. And then I've also, as far as residents association sort of thing, just when I was listening to Alhaji, and I just remember that actually I was in the Residents Association of Norman Williams and Alhaji Bashir in Southwest Ikoyi once, and I was actually drafted in by force. So I've never actually done that before and haven't done that after. And it was quite enjoyable actually, because I ended up being the head of traffic. Norman Williams is a thoroughfare. Well, sorry, it started to be used as a thoroughfare for people dodging traffic on Awolowo Road, and also for when petrol queues were very bad on Awolowo Road. So I ended up doing stuff like barriers that certain cars of certain heights could not go through, and then speed brakes on speed bumps and all that, which was also quite fun. Well, apart from that, yeah, I'm just an architect and a product designer, actually, on a serious note. Yeah, thanks.
But Chuka, I want to come to you first before I go back to Mr. Lawson, because you spoke about designing spaces, and I don't want to really talk about what I think about the wave of architectural design in Lagos right now, but we can discuss that at another forum. But what I really wanted you to share a bit more is how can we really design better? How do we design better so that residents and people that live, right, have more, a better quality of life, a better sense of connection? And Dolapo, I'll still come to you, but you look at estates now, for example, and you look at buildings, right? And you look at even communities, and it just seems like silos, like we're just building silos for people to live in. So what is guiding this? What are the regulations? What are the formula? What should we know about these things? Thank you.
I think there are two books that I read sometime in the early 80s that I've just never forgotten, what they tried to teach. One was The Living City by Frank Lloyd Wright, and the other was Collage City, written by Colin Rowe. And the two are connected. Frank Lloyd Wright basically was asking for a city that grew organically, that kind of tried to join agriculture and the city at the same time, and the idea of a green city. And if you look at the title of that book, which was Living City, you will know that basically, the word living is very, very important there. And it's sort of like an animal that breathes or a plant that's alive. And in Collage City, Colin Rowe talked about the idea of a city being a collage of various layers of things, sometimes totally unrelated, sometimes found objects. So that becomes like bricolage, which is basically about finding things and using them as your collage items. And I loved the idea because there was something that Ajoke Silva just talked about, somebody who had been selling outside Global Memorial, and it's been going through generations. I was actually very, very happy to hear that, because for one, I'm against the indiscriminate removal of kiosks as they're situated willy-nilly around the city. I know it's not good. We can get to that later, not today. But I'm against people being packed off from where their kiosks are. I'm against stopping people who are selling in traffic rather than finding out how to deal with it in a way that can create, there can be an environment, a lay-by where you can park your car and drive back in, like a drive-by, really, with lots of Igbo boys selling Fanta and Coke to you, I mean, they're just things that we're not doing. And that's why our cities never work, because we think we can manufacture a city from scratch that is actually alien to us as well, rather than look at what we are. Maybe it's caused by some poverty is part of what causes the whole street hawking and all that. But that said, we're not going to be rich soon. It's not going to happen soon. Actually, it's going to take a lot longer than we thought, because we've messed up the first 60 years. So I think it's time we started to see the city as something that we could bring together all sorts of things, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that's where the collage city comes in, that idea of the collage city. And that's, for me, what I think we're doing wrong. We don't need, when they say things like Eco-Atlantic is going to be the new Dubai, and I'm like, I wish we could burn the whole place down, because we don't need any Dubai in Lagos. Dubai isn't even nice anyway, but let's leave that as well for another day. Lagos is rich. It's actually a very beautiful place. It's not working, but it's very beautiful. And that's what we have to recognize in moving forward. We have to recognize it even when we're trying to create expensive areas. Expensive areas means Victoria Island, Ikoyi, and all that. And now even there's no difference between, say, Ikoyi is not even any different from Ilukbeju today, let's be honest. I mean, come on. So I don't really know where the land values are holding from. And the ones in Ilukbeju are not, because, really, this whole thing is it's not going very well. So I think that the basic things we need in a city, the green spaces, and we need lots of them. We don't need big ones. I think there was a talk. I don't know who held that talk. Maybe it was University of Lagos on Zoom some time ago. And there was this Indian lady who spoke. And she was talking about little green spaces, not a central park that's big. We don't need that. We just need lots and lots of little spaces. We went to an estate on Saturday, Orange Island. I mean, the layout is nice, but I still criticize it because it's really all about massing up those houses or plots of land, as the case may be. What we need are little parks here and there that everybody can walk to in 3 minutes. And it doesn't have to be big. It's not even a park, actually. Sorry, I misused the word. Just a green space close to 20 houses. And then another 20 houses, you open up another space there. And you just keep doing it. The area will grow, And one last thing, sorry. If you look at this multiple green spaces, you will see what the problem is with a place like Victoria Garden City, where they went and did a very big park, tricked everyone into thinking that this was going to be a garden city. They don't realize that some of us absolutely understand the concept of Garden City from the early 20th century. What it turned out was that after they did that park, they just started to do phase 1, phase 2, and they just kept packing lots and lots of houses. Now I can't even walk. Sorry, I don't live there. Now people can't walk from certain houses to that park. It might as well be an alien place that they only see on the way into the estate, and they never use it. And so they live in the concrete jungle. But it's called Victoria Garden City, by the way, which is completely ironic, let me stop there.
Thanks, Chuka. Olamide has put that it's called a parklet. So what you were mentioning, I just would like to say that the views of our panelists are their views and not the representation of the Sahara Center. But no, Chuka, thank you. So we'll just quickly go to some questions in the chat box, and I'll pass this on to our panelists because we are still on time, but I think it's important that we allow other questions to be put forward before we conclude and go to the next steps, and Olamide gives us our closing remarks. So some of the questions that we have are looking at what plans do we have to rejuvenate the activities and community engagements, and how do we also have engagement activities, because a while back carnivals were banned because miscreants took advantage, but in 2020 the Abu Residents Association was able to organize a carnival, but it was called an open house event, so the name was changed, and they did quiz competition, and they also did different things. So the question, and I guess this is to Ms. Silva, is to say, how do we formalize and organize more events for people in our communities? And what I'll do, I'll just go through the questions and then just appoint the different panelists that will respond. And then we'll just respond to this in 1 or 2 minutes so that we can close before 12 o'clock, which is the stated time. So that's question 1, Matt, to you. How do we formalize and organize more some of what you are doing and also engage communities? The second question is, how are corporate entities being courted to actively participate in all of these infrastructure developments? And I think this goes to Alhaji Muse, because you spoke about, Victoria Island and residents, and so you can respond to that. And I guess Dolapo as well, you can also respond a bit to that, to talk about what's happening with estate intel and some of what you're also doing in terms of real estate advocacy for the developers, because I know that that's your developers and private investors. Solomon has a question of brown envelope disease. I think that is beyond the remit of this panel. I don't know that we can address that. Shemun has a question on, I want to create a public space that fosters recreation, but I don't live on the island. What should I consider in designing, and what are the regulations to note? I think Chuka can respond to that. And then I can also respond to that, because this isn't really about everyone living on the island. That's not the case. This is just a pilot so that we can learn and replicate. So just to repeat, Ms. Silva, you'll answer the first question on formalizing and organizing so we can do more things in community. Dolapo, please, Alhaji Muse, you will answer in terms of getting corporate entities, some of what has worked. Dolapo, you will share with us what you're doing as estate intel. And then Chuka, you can advise on some of these things to consider in other spaces beyond the island. And then Mr. Lawson, I'll come back to you if we do get any other question. So thank you. Please, 1 minute each, if possible. Thank you. Chuka, could you just share for Sheon that, he wants to foster recreation and create more public spaces or more environment areas for residents to be, and he doesn't live on the island, which I don't think you need to live on the island for that, but what should he consider in designing, and what regulations or what recommendations and guidelines should he note?
Okay, she's actually a she, but
she,
yes. So I think there are just 2 points that I was going to make, because this difference between island and mainland is a very big problem. And it's a problem with Nigeria. I think that first of all, in general, we need to tax the rich. We need to really tax them so that we can take that money and go and develop other parts of the country. The disparity between wealth and poverty is way too much, and it shows that something is geared towards only the rich enjoying this country. So we need to do that and start it. No, I don't know who's going to start it, because all those who should start it are rich and they don't want to do it. That would help give us the money for the infrastructure to help the poorer areas. Second is that, well, when you look at the poorer areas today, or the less privileged areas, or however you want to put it, they're quite densely populated. And you're not going to sort of like begin to demolish all their houses right now and all that. So I think what we should do is to try to repurpose the streets. Some streets should be turned to one way, one lane being drive through, the other lane being pedestrian, and a bit of like you can sit on a bench there and watch life go by. It could be green. It doesn't have to be green, by the way. I'm thinking more of paved. I think that we could do stuff like that to begin to, we should intervene in the street, because all they've got is the streets at the moment. They don't have anything else.
Okay, hashtag tax the rich.